So I've previously established that the economy is in relation to the total energy of the system, sort of like a terrarium, where the bounds and the total nutrients and other forms of energy in the terrarium constrain the size, quality, number of organisms that can be sustained and stuff. And the chemistry kind of predetermines what can be created in that terrarium. So anything that has a reaction that causes it to try to overgrow and stuff ends up starving either itself or another portion of the terrarium, and it breaks down, which forms nutrients for this perpetual cycle, but is self-limiting and stuff. And all economies work that same way. The terrarium is like a micro economy and stuff that is a microcosm of that effect. Um, and I guess I'll just show a terrarium really quick because I keep mentioning the word terrarium, but I mean, I think some people just won't be comfortable with looking it up. So, um, see that's a very small terrarium right there. Um, but yeah, this is basically how the economy works. This is a rather big terrarium and stuff. Um, but yeah, these glass bits right here, these are all terrariums. This not really a terrarium because you could just add more to it. But yeah. So, but what sets the official definition? I don't know. So uh, the relation of energy to mass is non-negotiable in physics. Okay, a certain amount of mass can only contain so much energy and stuff. You can only add so much energy to it. You can only explode it for so much energy and stuff by atomic decomposition. Um, which tends to lead to a loss of mass and stuff. This is repeated many times. Um, Now, infinite consumption is not possible. The Marxists were correct about this. Okay, Natalists and other people aligned with more right-wing economics will argue over and over that human beings should just keep having babies and blah blah blah, while simultaneously teaching their people if you can't feed them, don't breed them and stuff. Well, you know, um, so that's kind of a mess. But we're already seeing the effects of over reproduction in the form of shrinkflation, crowding effects, mass homelessness, and stuff like that. All the systems that were meant to sustain human life and progress and everything are pretty much overloaded at this point. Um, the recent COVID-19 crisis in the United States, because I'm talking about the United States here, the recent crisis in the United States showed that we were not ready for so many people needing healthcare at once, which is bad and stuff, which means that we were very weak to a pandemic. And we were, because there's 3 million deaths associated with COVID. COVID led to those deaths, do you understand? In the least, if it didn't just outright create those deaths. Okay? Um, but this is a result of this type of thing is all a result of overconsumption from overbuying, overeating, overwasting, overproduction. Okay. Um, Now I have some limiting factors here. Water supply, heat, nutrients, solar energy allotment per day, and stuff. We only get so much of direct sunlight per day because of the rotation of the Earth. You know, electrical grid size or load capacity. Medical medical facility capacity, cash supply, horizontal space, housing capacity. Human beings in general, and so not just the United States, tend to build a lot in the horizontal direction. This could be something genetic or instinctive, but you know, I don't want to kind of overascribe the driving factor of something that's evolutionary and stuff. I want to think it's just the result of how administrative decisions have been and how civil engineering has been taught. If it's been taught at all, I doubt it has. Um, Housing capacity, ideal birth rate, with RK selection ratio considered. This is very important to the survival of the civilization and stuff. Um, Conventional combustible fuels, Yeah. Now, RK selection, just to explain, explains the like kind of the quality to quantity aspects of a number of organisms and stuff. The organisms that generally get the more investment of time, energy, and resources and stuff become more case selected and stuff. It produces. It has a tendency to produce larger, higher quality organisms. They handle more business and have more functionality and stuff. Um, so operators, handlers, and agents and stuff. These are all analyzed differently in economics, canonically speaking and stuff. They can all be the same, but like agents can be causal, handlers do things, operators perform certain operations, right? So when you're handling and stuff, you're considering the load capacity. When you're an operator and stuff, you know um, you are you're performing certain tasks, okay? Um, and conventional combustible fuels, gasoline, diesel, butane, and propane and stuff. These are not easy to make. They take time, they take energy and stuff. And if we have to import them, it becomes a huge problem. Oh yeah, we have cash supply there. Um, I'm gonna say currency supply, digital currency, gold. Um, ideal equilibrium mortality rate and stuff. Unfortunately, until uh, economic equilibrium is reached and stuff, um, or something as close to it as possible, or some kind of calm state is it is achieved. Sorry, you're going to have to have a certain amount of people die per day, per week, per month, however you want to calculate the rate and stuff to keep the optimal number of free resources and stuff. Those people refusing to die off means that kids will starve. Do you understand? This is also why um, in in terms of like the political economy aspect, not everyone can be regarded as equal and stuff. Criminal status tells a lot about who's equal and who's not and stuff. If you have a civilization where a thief and stuff or a murderer is equal under the is really equal, like I'm not talking about administratively, is really equal under the eyes of the law to like some paragon somewhere, then you've got a problem and stuff. Um that's basically a system that tries to like enable and reward that behavior and stuff, and that's that's highly destructive. Okay. Um, and total raw material inventory, things like steel, wood, etc. and stuff. Because you need to produce so much wood, you need to, sequester certain areas of the forest and stuff until you figure out how to farm it and stuff, in which case you're still going to be sequestering space. So there's that. Um, and this concludes episode 1 of the limiting factors in human consumption portion of economics education and stuff. Anybody who tells you that humans should just keep consuming more and buying more is an idiot. Okay, they just it's just an idiotic statement. It flies in the face of science and reason, whatever. Um, yeah.